Hi, welcome to Virtually Sunday, a production of Whatsoever You Do Incorporated in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I remember about 25 years ago, a group of us went to the Dominican Republic, and we went to a small village called Elias Pina. It's a mission of the Diocese of Green Bay. We spent a week there and lived with host families and experienced the life of what it is in a very impoverished area just across the border from Haiti. After our week there, we went for just one day back to the capital, Santo Domingo, and we stayed at an all-inclusive place. Went to a resort for a day and ate lavish food and drank drinks and enjoyed really a life that none of us experienced back in the United States. A very lavish life. It was such a dichotomy, such a contrast between the life of the poor, of the poverty that is experienced in Elias Pina, and that which we experienced in the capital of Santo Domingo. We go to the first reading for this Sunday's gospel, and it's a reading from the prophet Amos. And Amos, I'll tell you what, he's having either a bad hair day or he got up on the wrong side of the bed, but he's really railing on the Israelites for how they are living and how they are treating each other. I want to read the words that he says. It says, "Thus says the Lord, the God of hosts, woe to the complacent in Zion, lying upon beds of ivory, stretched comfortably on their couches. They eat lambs taken from the flock and calves from the stall, improvising to the music of the harp like David. They devise their own accompaniment. They drink wine from bowls and anoint themselves with the best oils. Yet they are not made ill by the collapse of Joseph. Their punishment was exile." Amos is really railing on the fact that the Israelites were living the high life. They were living a lavish life, and yet they were seeing some of their neighbors, in this case Joseph, collapsing from hunger, from poverty. He's really pointing out the fact of this dichotomy, this chasm between the poor and the rich. So we move to Luke's gospel, and it has that famous parable of Lazarus and the rich man. And I'm sure you know the story, but just as a quick retelling, we've got the rich man who has lived lavishly his entire life, having many riches and eating very, very well. And yet at his doorstep is Lazarus, who is utterly poor, would just love to have some of the scraps from the rich man's table. And yet the rich man doesn't share what he has with Lazarus. Well, and they both die, and they both go to different places. It says that Lazarus goes to the bosom of Abraham, the rich man goes to the netherworld. And there the rich man says, "Please, Abraham, send Lazarus to cool my thirsting tongue and to give me drink." And ultimately, Abraham says, "Hey, buddy, you had your chance while you were living to help out Lazarus, and you didn't do it." The word chasm, because the word chasm gets used in this reading, really sticks out to me. It says there's been a chasm placed between Lazarus and the rich man and Lazarus, the rich and the poor. I think about that word chasm, and I think about our streets of Green Bay as I go out on Wednesdays and Thursdays with our streetlights outreach teams. There's an increasing chasm, I feel, between those who are unsheltered on our streets and those who have a home. There on the streets is an increasing amount of pain, of addiction, of mental health issues, and of need. I've been doing this for 20 years, and it just seems like this summer there's more need than ever before. Here I am, sitting in this nice house recording this video, and at this very moment, there are people sitting down at St. John's Park, Jackson Park, other places in our community, suffering from addiction, suffering from mental health issues, suffering from poverty and homelessness. There's a chasm. There's a chasm between this house and what's happening on the streets. There's probably a chasm between your house and what's happening on the streets. So what should we do? Should we have guilt? Should we go on a guilt trip about this? I suppose a healthy amount of guilt is not a bad thing here. But if that guilt doesn't lead us to some action, what good will it do? What good will it do for our brothers and sisters on the streets? I gotta say, people have been very generous these last few weeks. We have had a blanket collection going on, and we've got dozens and dozens of blankets that have been collected for Streetlights Outreach volunteers to hand out to those who are unsheltered. We've had funds and food come in to help those on the streets. The generosity is really there, but we can always do more. And we also need to examine the other chasms in our lives. We don't we talk to anymore because we have different political beliefs. How many people do you know in the LGBTQ community? And how do you build bridges and diminish the chasm there? How do we diminish the chasm between people who most recently have arrived in our country or who have lived here for decades and contribute to our society and to our economy and to so many ways in our community here? How do we make this a safe place? Because that's all they're trying to do, is have a safe place for themselves and their families. Sometimes language gets in the way of that of diminishing that chasm. But at least we can do is try. Learn a few words or a few phrases in Spanish and try to diminish the chasm. Chasms. We have an opportunity, like the rich man in the gospel today, to diminish the chasms in our lives right now, before it's too late. And while we and the Lazaruses in our community, we're still living, we have that opportunity to diminish chasms. Let's get about the work of doing that today, this week, and in the months ahead. Have a great week, everyone.